Hello everyone, and welcome to my Bold and Beautiful Gossips 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Quinn Fuller walked back into Los Angeles like a storm that had been erecting for times, the kind of storm that didn't just bring rain but ripped the roof off everything in its path. She didn't return still, and she didn't return alone. By her side was a little girl, no age than 6, with Quinn's fiery red hair and those unmistakable, piercing eyes that had always suggested at trouble and passion. The moment Quinn stepped through the doors of Forrester Creations, exchanges stopped, models set mid-stride, and indeed the directors upstairs felt the shift in the air. Everyone in that structure flashed back Quinn the chaos, the dishonors, the love affairs, the backstabbings. But no bone had ever seen her like this. Defensive, concentrated, nearly calm. She held her son's hand tightly, as if daring the world to challenge her again. Word spread snappily. Quinn was back. And she had a child. What no bone anticipated was the stunner that followed. Carter Walton was in the middle of reviewing legal documents when he heard the murmurs in the hallway. First he ignored them. Forrester Creations was no way short on drama. But when he heard Quinn's name, his stomach tensed. Times had passed since he'd last seen her. Times filled with remorse, unanswered questions, and recollections he buried deep. Before he could prepare himself, the door to his office opened, and there she was. Quinn Fuller, standing altitudinous, eyes blazing with the same intensity he flashed back. And beside her stood a little girl who looked up at him with curiosity and innocence. Carter slightly had time to reuse the sight before Quinn spoke the words that would change his life ever. Calm, steady, and without vacillation, she told him that the child was his. The room felt lower. The air felt heavier. Carter's mind contended through every moment he participated with Quinn, every argument, every passionate hassle, every pledge that had ended in heartache. He searched her face for signs of deception, for the familiar manipulation he'd formerly known so well. But what he saw rather was determination, the kind that comes from guarding a child at all costs. Quinn explained that she had left Los Angeles to start over, to escape the poisonous cycle of power games and broken connections. She had discovered she was pregnant shortly after leaving. And this time she chose not to run from the responsibility. She chose to raise her son in peace, down from the chaos. But now circumstances had changed. Her son merited to know her father. And Carter merited to know the verity. The little girl, ignorant of the emotional earthquake she had just caused, dragged gently on Quinn's hand and asked if the man in the suit was her pater. Carter felt his casket strain as he looked into her eyes, eyes that imaged his own further than he wanted to admit. He'd spent times erecting a character as a man of integrity, someone who valued honesty and commitment. Yet then he was brazen with a history he no way knew was. Quinn watched him nearly ready to fight if she had to, but hoping, just formerly, that he'd rise to the moment. News of Quinn's return spread like campfire through the Forrester family. Brooke Logan was the first to reply with shock, flashing back each too well the destruction Quinn had formerly caused. Rich Forrester was more skeptical, questioning Quinn's motives and whether this was another calculated move. But when they saw the child, innocent, sweet, and easily real, indeed their dubieties began to soften. This wasn't just another reproach. This was a life-changing disclosure. Carter plotted intimately with the emotional weight of the situation. He questioned everything. How had he missed this? Could Quinn really be telling the verity? But every time he looked at the little girl, he felt a connection he couldn't explain. Her laugh sounded familiar. Her expressions imaged his own. And when she reached for his hand, commodity inside him shifted. Quinn for formerly wasn't playing games. She wasn't seeking vengeance or control. Her only thing was to secure a future for her son. She wanted stability. She wanted honesty. And overall, she wanted her child to know she was loved by both parents. Times of miscalculations had tutored Quinn what truly signified. This wasn't about power presently. This was about family. As Carter sluggishly stepped into the part of father, the emotional impact gurgled through everyone around him. He set up himself rearranging his precedences, learning how to balance legal liabilities with bedtime stories and academy events. The woman who formerly brought chaos into his life had now brought him the most unanticipated gift he'd ever entered. Quinn, watching Carter grow into motherhood, felt commodity she hadn't felt in times peace. Not the temporary kind, but the deep, steady kind that comes from knowing you've eventually done commodity right. But in true bold and the beautiful fashion, not everyone ate this new chapter. Old adversaries resurfaced, secrets from Quinn's once hovered to unravel everything, and doubts about the child's maternity began to circulate. DNA tests were rumored about. Motives were questioned. And just when it sounded like stability was within reach, the history came knocking formally again. Still, Quinn stood establishment. This time she wasn't fighting for love, vengeance, or redemption. She was fighting for her son. And Carter, for the first time in his life, wasn't running from the storm. He was standing in it, ready to cover the family he no way knew he had. The rumors didn't stay quiet for long. In Los Angeles, secrets no way did. Within days of Quinn's explosive return and her stunning protestation about Carter's son, the entire megacity sounded to be buzzing with enterprise. Social media lit up with vague prints of Quinn walking through Forrester Creations holding a child's hand. Gossip blogs batted timelines, old connections, and whether Carter Walton, the reputed legal mind of the fashion conglomerate, was truly ready to be a father to a child he'd no way known was. But beyond the noise, real feelings were unfolding behind unrestricted doors. Carter tried to maintain his calm, professional surface, but internally, his life felt like it had been turned upside down. Every memory he'd precisely boxed down from his relationship with Quinn now felt dangerously applicable. He replayed moments in his head, the passion, the arguments, the way Quinn always demanded his full attention. Back also, he'd believed he was walking down from chaos. Now he realized he'd also walked down from a future he no way indeed knew was forming. The idea that a piece of him had been growing up without his presence visited him. Quinn, on the other hand, carried a different kind of weight. Times of raising her son alone had hardened her in some ways and softened her in others. She had learned tolerance, immolation, and the quiet strength that comes from putting someone additional's requirements before your own. The woman who formerly thrived on manipulation and drama had been reshaped by fatherhood. Every choice she made now was guided by one simple thing: guarding her child's heart. Her son was bright, curious, and full of life. She loved drawing dresses inspired by the glamorous world of Forrester Creations, and pictured of getting a developer one day. Quinn watched her sketch in the living room, imagining a future that felt safer and more stable than the one Quinn herself had grown up in. Bringing Carter back into their lives wasn't about stirring drama. It was about giving her son the chance to know where she came from. But the once no way stays buried in Los Angeles. Brooke Logan plotted to hide her apprehension. She had spent times dealing with Quinn's changeable jest. And while she could see that fatherhood had changed her, trust didn't come fluently. Brooke bothered about how this disclosure might affect the fragile balance within the Forrester family. A new child meant new commitment, new conflicts, and conceivably new dolor. She had seen too numerous families torn piecemeal by secrets to feel comfortable with this unforeseen twist. Rich Forrester was more direct in his dubitation. He questioned the timing, the motives, and whether Quinn was truly being honest. From his perspective, Quinn had always had a way of bending the verity when it suited her. But indeed Rich couldn't deny the emotional graveness of the situation when he saw Carter's quiet metamorphosis. The confident counsel who formerly navigated heads with ease now looked like a man trying to find his footing in strange home. Meanwhile, Carter's connection to the child grew stronger with each passing day. He began visiting Quinn's home, not as a guest or an unbeliever, but as a father trying to understand the measures of his son's life. He learned about her favorite foods, her bedtime routines, and the stories that helped her fall asleep at night. The simple moments, helping with schoolwork, hearkening to her talk about academy, brought him a sense of fulfillment he'd no way endured before. Yet beneath the warmth, mistrustfulness dallied. Tales about a DNA test grew louder. Some believed it was only a matter of time before someone demanded scientific evidence. Others wondered if Quinn would repel, stewing the results might not align with her claims. Quinn herself understood the ineluctable. She knew the world she had returned to demanded substantiation, not just emotion. Still, the idea of putting her son through that process made her uneasy. She stressed how query could affect the little girl's sense of identity. Carter, torn between trust and responsibility, scuffled with his own internal conflict. He wanted to believe Quinn. He wanted to believe in the connection he felt with the child. But as a man of law, he also knew that verity demanded to be vindicated, especially when a child's future was at stake. The weight of that responsibility pressed heavily on him. As pressure coddled, another unanticipated complication surfaced. An old figure from Quinn's history resurfaced in Los Angeles, stirring apprehension. Someone who knew her before fatherhood, before maturity, before she had learned restraint. This person carried knowledge about Quinn's life during the months girding her gestation. And in a megacity where secrets were currency, that knowledge was dangerous. The bare possibility of retired trueness hovered to destabilize everything Quinn had worked so hard to make. She had spent times casting a life of stability for her son, precisely avoiding the miscalculations that formerly defined her. But Los Angeles had a way of dragging people back into the chaos they allowed. They had escaped. Carter tasted the shift. Quinn came more guarded, more defensive. She watched her surroundings nearly, as if awaiting trouble. When he asked what was wrong, she brushed it off, averring that she was just conforming to being back in the megacity. But Carter knew better. He'd seen Quinn in extremity before, and this felt familiar. At the same time, Carter faced pressure from within Forrester Creations. Board members still questioned how his particular life might affect his professional judgment. Some bothered that emotional distractions could compromise his part in handling sensitive company matters. Carter still refused to let those dubieties define him. However, getting a father had strengthened his sense of responsibility, if anything. Quinn watched Carter grow, not just as a parent but as a man. The interpretation of Carter standing beside her now was steadier, wiser, and more predicated than the man she had formerly loved. She couldn't deny the spark that still was between them, but this time it was tempered by commodity deeper respect. Still, their history was complicated. Old injuries didn't heal overnight. There were moments of pressure, misconstructions, and emotional distance. Quinn plotted to completely trust Carter's commitment, visited by recollections of how fluently he'd formerly walked down. Carter, in turn, plotted with moping dubieties about Quinn's honesty. Their participated history cast long murk over their present. Yet their son remained the light that kept pulling them forward. She brought horselaugh into tense apartments and innocence into complicated exchanges. Her presence reminded everyone involved that this story wasn't just about grown-ups and their miscalculations. It was about a child who merited love, stability, and verity. As days turned into weeks, the pressure for answers boosted. DNA testing came necessary. The Forrester family, concerned about implicit legal and emotional consequences, encouraged Carter to take that step. Quinn, later much vacillation, agreed. Not because she misdoubted herself, but because she wanted to cover her son from unborn query. The staying period was unsupportable. Every phone call felt heavy. Every moment of silence felt suspicious. Quinn tried to stay calm for her son's sake, but late at night, when the house was quiet, her fears surfaced. What if commodity went wrong? What if the history she had tried to leave before came crashing into their lives? Carter, too, plotted with the expectation. He set up himself imagining both issues, preparing for joy and disappointment at the same time. No matter the result, he knew his life had formerly changed. When the results eventually arrived, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The evidence brought relief, confirmation, and a surge of emotion that neither Quinn nor Carter had completely prepared for. The child truly was Carter's. The connection they felt was real. The future they were cautiously erecting was predicated in verity. But relief didn't mean peace. New challenges surfaced nearly incontinently. Legal liabilities, guardianship arrangements, and questions about the child's part within the Forrester family created fresh pressure. Some ate her with open arms, while others viewed her as a memorial of once miscalculations and undetermined conflicts. Quinn set up herself formally again, fighting for her place in a world that had no way completely accepted her. But this time she wasn't fighting alone. Carter stood beside her, determined to cover their son from the judgment and chaos that frequently girdled the Forrester heritage. Their relationship began to evolve, not driven by passion alone, but by participated purpose. They learned to communicate, to compromise, and to support each other in ways they no way had ahead. Parenthood forced them to defy their excrescencies and grow beyond them. Yet just when stability sounded within reach, another storm gathered. Secrets from Quinn's once hovered to resurface, secrets that could challenge the narrative she had precisely erected for her son. And in true bold and the beautiful fashion, the verity had a way of revealing itself at the worst possible moment. As whispers turned into competitions and old alliances shifted, Quinn faced the possibility that her redemption story might not be complete. But one thing remained imperturbable: her devotion to her child. Carter, standing forcefully in his part as a father, refused to let history reprise itself. He pledged to cover the family he'd nearly lost before he indeed knew it was. And in the glamorous, ruthless world of Los Angeles, where love and treason frequently walked hand in hand, Quinn and Carter's story came an important memorial that indeed the most complicated histories could lead to unanticipated stopgap if people were willing to fight for it. With the maternity verified, Quinn's life entered a new phase that felt both stable and dangerously exposed. The secret she had defended for times was no longer hers alone. It belonged to Carter, to their son, and to the important world of the Forrester family. Every step she took now felt watched. Every choice carried weight. But despite the pressure, Quinn felt commodity she had endured in a long time clarity. Her purpose was no longer tied to proving herself or controlling issues. It was tied to guarding her child's future. Carter embraced his new identity with quiet determination. He acclimated his schedule, prioritized family time, and sluggishly reshaped his world around motherhood. The high-powered legal meetings and commercial accommodations still signified, but they no longer defined him. His son did. He wanted to be present in ways he'd no way been for anyone before, showing her thickness, honesty, and strength. In doing so, he also began to heal corridor of himself that had been shaped by times of emotional distance. Quinn watched Carter grow into his part with a blend of gratefulness and vulnerability. She had prepared herself to raise her son alone ever. Trusting someone differently with her child's heart was intimidating. But Carter's steady presence, his tolerance, and his amenability to show up without conditions sluggishly minced down at the walls Quinn had erected around herself. She began to believe that perhaps, just perhaps, this chapter of her life could be different from all the others. Still, Los Angeles no way allows peace to last. Old connections resurfaced, bringing whispers of Quinn's history back into the limelight. People who had known her before fatherhood, before responsibility, flashed back a woman who thrived on control and chaos. They questioned her metamorphosis. They questioned her motives. And they wondered whether the stability she now displayed was real, or just another performance. The pressure affected Quinn further than she wanted to admit. Late at night, when her son was asleep, she replayed every choice she had made over the times. She allowed about the miscalculations that had formerly defined her character. She stressed how those stories might one day reach her child's cognizance. But rather of running, Quinn chose to face the scrutiny head-on. She had nothing to hide presently. Her life was no longer driven by secrets. It was driven by love. Carter stood forcefully beside her during moments of mistrustfulness. His fidelity, formerly shaken by the history, had been rebuilt through participated responsibility. He wasn't just defending Quinn presently. He was defending his family. And that distinction changed everything. The Forrester family, though still conservative, began to soften. Seeing Carter in his part as a father shifted perspectives. His fidelity was inarguable. Indeed, those who had formerly misdoubted Quinn's intentions set up it harder to ignore the sincerity of her metamorphosis. The child, with her warmth and innocence, bridged gaps that times of conflict no way could. But metamorphosis doesn't abolish history. A final surge of pressure arrived when rumors suggested that corridor of Quinn's history were still undetermined. Old business dealings, emotional snares, and forgotten alliances hovered to resurface. The possibility of reproach impended, reminding everyone that in this world, no chapter ever truly closes. Quinn still faced the query with a strength she had no way known before. She no longer demanded to control the narrative. Her verity was embedded in the present, in her son's horse laugh, in Carter's steady presence, and in the life she had rebuilt through perseverance rather than manipulation. Carter, too, set up peace in the acceptance that his life would no way be simple. Love, family, and responsibility came with complications, but he ate them. They gave his success meaning beyond legal palms and professional achievements. As the megacity buzzed with enterprise, Quinn and Carter concentrated on what signified most. They created routines. They erected traditions. They allowed themselves to stopgap. And in a place where chaos frequently defined connections, their quiet adaptability stood out. The future remained uncertain, as it always does in the world of the bold and the beautiful. But for the first time in a long time, Quinn wasn't hysterical of what came next. She had faced her history, embraced her verity, and set up purpose in commodity far lesser than herself. And Carter, standing beside the woman he formerly walked down from, now stood stronger than ever, not as a man chasing success, but as a father guarding the family he no way knew he demanded.